Let's not meet. After my daughter found human remains, we found out we've been watched by masked men for a week. First and foremost, I need to make this very clear. The local law enforcement has been very well notified about this situation, and my family has a member of a federal agency that is aware of the situation as well. I know that Reddit likes to dive into stories posted on here sometimes, but please know that the situation is being taken care of as we speak. Secondly, I have been a lurker on Reddit for around 3 years now, only making an account a year ago though. I know that there's a ton of trolls online who like to post things like these for a reaction. I have zero issue sending submods proof of this story, but only once things have been taken care of legally. But for the utmost safety of my family and the guidance from my lawyer, law enforcement, and family, I will only be posting the information I chose to share in this post for the time being. Please understand that. Now, what's been going on? Less than half a year ago, my wife and I purchased what we consider our dream home. It's exactly what we have been discussing about what we have wanted in our home to raise our family since we first started to get very serious as a couple. To paint the picture for you, it is a completely redone farmhouse that sits on a large amount of land. We have a very long driveway that takes you right up to the side of the house. The house can't not be seen from the road we live on, simply just because of how far back and where the house sits. Our neighbors are a pretty good distances away from us. They are both an older couple and they both have been very vocal about how happy they are we are there. They have been great and could not have been more welcoming to me and my family during the initial move-in process. My farmland is mostly behind the house, with only a little bit of it starting on the right side of the house, and then a few acres on the left side. On the left, past my property is kinda dead land, where no one owns it or takes care of it. After my property ends, there is a huge amount of brush and grass built up, and then there are a ton of large trees that scatter right up to my neighbor's property. These trees are just a small patch of woods, but it is probably around an acre long. Behind my house is a very large barn. The barn isn't far from the house at all. If I was to guess, it's only probably around 50 feet behind. Even though the house is gorgeous after the major remodel the previous owners did to sell the house, the barn is in its original glory. It's old and sorta falling apart. I have made it very clear to my daughter not to go in certain parts of the barn simply because I don't trust the old wood to hold up. This barn is not locked ever. I just don't have many belongings in it, and also, I quickly realized that there's a few places to get into the barn other than the front entrance, and they are very obvious spots just due to the wood breaking down and getting older and older. I'm sure that it was a nice barn in its glory days, but to me, and especially my wife, it's a massive eyesore. It's very large, but for the most part empty. I keep my riding lawnmower in there, and I also have some miscellaneous tools in there as well. The barn is never used by us. She guided me into the barn and pointed up to the second floor. I call it the second floor because it's not really that. It's an overhang that is near the top of the barn that has a ladder going up to it. Not entirely sure what this used to be used for, but it's not used by us at all. I also know that there's zero chance that a dog or fox or other four-legged guy stumbled upon this barn for shelter, since I've never seen a dog climb a higher ladder. My protective dad mode immediately turned on and I knew that something was up. A few months ago I decided to climb up there just out of curiosity and found a board that came up. The previous owners used to hide money throughout the house and property, and I actually found a wad of cash hidden in this very board. But after that day, I never went back up there. Once I climbed up, I saw that my daughter found that board and lifted it up. But she did not find money. There was a trash bag with multiple bones inside of it tucked inside the hidden spot. This is hands down the scariest moment in my life, because I know for a fact that this has been placed there recently, because when I went up there, it wasn't there. I immediately made phone calls and the local police and crew came out. The entire property was overran with different types of vans and cars. My family was questioned very intensely for around 2 hours, asking us every single question you could possibly ask someone. One of the officers pulled me aside and told me that they are in fact what I feared, human remains. After the longest day of my life, some information came out from the last owners that there was a problem with squatters in the woods on the edge of my property. I have never seen anyone roaming around or any sign of people going through my things. Looking back now, I made a very dangerous and idiotic mistake. I installed a camera system when we first moved in, but made the decision to only put cameras facing the front of the house and driveway. I figured there was no rush to get cameras for the back. Easily one of the biggest mistakes of my life, since we would have been able to have footage of the person going into my barn with this bag. When going through the camera footage with the officers, we discovered something extremely chilling that I somehow never saw, because up to this point there was no reason to check the cameras. Caught on the cameras exactly 5 days back, at the early hours in the morning, the side motion light of my house turned on and you could see multiple shadows on the ground of people walking by. But that absolutely is not the part that made me shiver and make this grown man almost fall to the ground in tears from fright. When going back to the footage, every night after the 5-day point leading up to this day, every single night, 2 men wearing some sort of identical masks and completely covered in clothes head to toe would walk up my driveway and just stare at my house. The shortest time they stood there was a tiny bit over 20 minutes. The longest that they stood there was right under 2 hours. Standing there, completely still, just looking at my house. My hands are shaking so bad typing those sentences. The local police put us up in a motel around 30 minutes outside of town, promising us that they would make routine reviews every 30 minutes to check on us. Why they would not have officers posted up outside the room at all times, I have no idea, and I am extremely upset with that decision. We were at the motel for 2 nights. The first night, I got 0 minutes of sleep. I held my family extremely tight and watched the front door for every single second that night. The police did hold up to their promise of checking on us. On the second night, around the similar time of the 2 men caught on camera, we awoke to an extreme loud banging on my front door of the motel. I jumped up and went into panic mode. We waited in silence and nothing happened. I got on the phone and dialed my direct contact line to police. Within only a few moments, an officer was at the motel. We were taken to a new location and have been here for a few days. My family member in the federal agency has intervened and is personally taking care of us. This is an ongoing investigation and I cannot give more detail than what I have given already in this post. My family is safe. I am safe. I again beg for the privacy of this situation outside of what was given in this post. I 100% will update on this account once everything has been taken care of, and I will make sure to update you to tell you that we are safe once we are for good. My family is in extreme fear of the unknown. We have no idea why any of this is happening to us, and even though it has all just started, we are so ready for this to be behind us. I spend all of my time just staring out into the distance, waiting for those unknown men to come and take my life, my daughter, my wife, my unborn baby, wherever they may be. I'm here, waiting and ready for what's next. Guy insists on being my daddy and gropes me in front of my actual dad. Hey everyone, first time poster here. I totally forgot about this story until recently, so enjoy. This turned out to be longer than expected. Apologies. Not sure if this is the correct only subreddit this belongs in. Let me know. At the time I just turned 17 and was still pretty naive. I live in England, so it is legal to work in a bar and serve alcohol supervised, but not to drink alcohol. Not that it stopped me. I worked in a working men's club filled with middle-aged elderly people. Most were really nice. I sold bingo tickets twice a week for my dad's cousin and I was pretty good at it. It's not typical to get tips here, but I earned more in tips than I did my actual wage. On a Saturday my dad would come with me to have a drink with my elder sister while they played competitive darts in the main bar overlooking my booth. This one particular night there was a middle-aged average looking guy, a little on the plump side but generally unnoticeable. On the first round of selling tickets he was at the fruit machine opposite the entire time, looking over at me occasionally. The second round he approached me, asked what I was selling, how bingo worked etc. Clearly had never played before, but hey, everyone starts somewhere, right? He bought some tickets and offered to buy me a drink. I declined and informed him I was underage. By now I had a bit of an uneasy vibe and didn't want to take a drink from a guy I don't know. He then offered a cola, complimenting me a little too hard. Again declined and went on my way to help with the game in the main hall. Part of my job. Third time, he stood against the wall adjacent to me and just watched me work. He'd waited until the queue calmed down and bragged about how much money he had and how he wants to be my sugar daddy. How cute I am. Commenting on my figure, my boobs, my butt, etc. I was trapped in my booth. I was late into the main hall, so the concert chairman, guy who calls out the bingo numbers and gives out winnings, comes out and asked what was going on. This guy claims we're just talking. I apologized to the chairman and he walked with me into the hall. Said he could see I was freaked out, so I told him everything. He made the bar staff aware, who also made my boss, my dad's cousin, aware also. Last round of selling tickets. He doesn't even wait for me to get back in my booth. He grabs my ass, telling me how he wants to be my sugar daddy once again. Tries to push me against the wall and is suddenly spun around. Not just by my dad, but my boss and numerous staff members and customers who saw what went down. He started arguing his innocence until my dad not so politely introduced himself. He knew he was ducked. My dad punched him in the nose, blood running down his face. Everyone picked him up like a plank of wood and threw him out of the closed door. Never saw him after that. Everyone checked up on me to make sure I was okay. My sister covered the rest of my shift, and I bought so much to drink I had a free bar tab for 2 months. So creepy guy that wanted to be my sugar daddy. Let's not meet again. Don't sleep in your car. Let me start by saying I really enjoy driving, and I will often be on the road for hours just listening to music and getting lost. So more often than not I will sleep in my car on the side of a country road. I don't like it when I'm the passenger though, so I always go alone. Usually, I sleep for a bit, wake up, then go home without incident. There has been a couple of times when a deer has startled me, or even a person knocking on my window to make sure I was okay was met with a scream. But what happened last night takes the absolute cake. I took my dogs up to a really nice walk I had read about online. It was about a 5-hour drive and I had planned to drive for an hour at a time, explore for a bit, then keep going so the dogs didn't get restless or bored. I had taken plenty of food and water and was planning to be gone for about a day, which I was, and was going to park in a popular parking spot that caravanners and the like tend to stay overnight. It was lovely and myself and the dogs had a really good time. We arrived at our sleeping destination and found that there wasn't any space to park. The bays weren't laid out, so you just kind of had to use your common sense and find a spot where you weren't blocking anyone in. The parking area was free and could only contain about 10 cars vans without it being too tight. I was a little annoyed, but hey ho. It was a very rural area, so I carried on for a little while and pulled into a lay-by to rest before I drove home. I let the dogs out to do their business and then went to sleep, thinking nothing of it. To describe where I had parked, it was opposite a little cottage but not directly in front of it, and there were plenty of trees, so I didn't feel as though I was intruding on the owners in any way. I felt very safe. For some reason, I was having trouble nodding off. Usually I slept like a baby in my car because it is very spacious and comfortable, and as silly as it may sound to some, I genuinely thought I had nothing to worry about. That was until a long, high-pitched scratching sound woke me and the dogs up at around 11 PM. Just after I had drifted off, the dogs went nuts, as they usually do at the drop of a hat, and I was still in a confused daze when I saw a very tall, middle-aged man dragging what I thought was a key around the perimeter of my car. He walked very slowly, and didn't take his eyes off of me the entire time. He also had a very malicious grin on his face. Horrified, I cranked my chair up and started the car, ready to floor it, but he had made his way to the front of my bonnet, and trees were blocking me from reversing. This was when I saw that he was holding a butcher's knife. He held it up and sort of waved it at me. I screamed and laid on the horn, and my dogs had leapt over the back seat and were practically frothing at the mouth, but it didn't seem to faze him. This lasted about 10 to 15 seconds, not long. And then he just slowly walked away, across the road, and into the cottage. I drove home without stopping. I'm never doing that again. Thanks for ruining it for me. Genuinely terrifying man. And thanks for ruining my paintwork. I don't know if he was just trying to teach me a lesson for parking outside his house or what, but either way, I will probably be scarred for life. Bro, you made it to the end? You're a ducking mad lad. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.